Hey everyone, welcome back to Policy Pulse. In this episode, we'll discuss something that we didn't discuss in the last episode. Last episode, we just followed the money. And in this episode, we were just asking a simple question that what the Canadian taxpayers are getting for their investment in their colleges and universities. And is the students are also getting what they expected from the degree. We have a abundance of degrees, but the students don't have the matching level of jobs that they expected. So obviously something is not working the way it should be. There's a mismatch of expectation and reality. And in the, I guess, introduction of AI in everyday's life, we basically need to refine and fine tune this matching of education expectation versus the job prospect of the graduates and who should be funding and what program and curriculum should be revised. So let's get into it with some of the numbers and you be the judge as usual. We'll just put out the facts that's known in the public domain and we'll go from there. So it's clear that all of you know that there are too many degrees, and those students who graduated, they don't have enough jobs available for them to go to, and not enough trades. Is that true? And at the same time, you hear the industry is crying foul that we don't have enough skilled workers and we need temporary workers, and that's why there's a influx of immigration, that temporary foreign workers are coming in millions, so to speak. So who benefits, who gets left behind? That's the focus on this particular episode. We followed the money last episode, and here are some of the numbers. So youth unemployment since September 2025 has been quite high, 14.7% approximately, and unemployment rate for bachelor grads from 2020 to 2029 is about 8.1%. That's high. And the trade workers needed by 2035 is also quite high. As you can see, is about 85,000 plus. So what's going on here? Here is one of the theory some people are floating, and that is governments may be over subsidizing university degrees, while Canada faces a growing shortage in the skilled trades. And here's what's new. For the first time in decades, a bachelor's degree doesn't guarantee a better job odds than, let's say, a trade certificate. So who's actually benefiting from the way the funds higher education in the current period? And who is being left behind? And what can the government do about it? Now, as usual, let's look at the numbers. Youth unemployment in Canada hit about 14.7% this September. That's the highest it has been since 2010. Outside the pandemic, among people 20 to 29 with a bachelor degree or higher, unemployment is about 8.1%. Back in 2019, it was only 5.9%. For people the same age with a college diploma or trade credential, unemployment is about 6.4%. That's now lower than the degree holders. Since 2023, the pattern flipped, so to speak. The bachelor's degree now carries more unemployment risk than a college or trade credentials. Now let's do a quick follow-up. Last episode we mentioned that over 127,000 international students graduated in Canada in 2020. So what happened to them? 2 years later, 75% were working in Canada and 5% were still studying. Obviously, that tells a story. So they were not really primarily focusing on education. So anyway, The rest, about 20%, are mostly gone or unaccounted for. I would love to know what is the case. 3 years out, about 20% of that group had become permanent residents. There you go. Another reason for those foreign students to become, I guess, permanent residents. Another 56% were still here on a new or temporary permit, mostly the post-graduation work permit. That's very interesting. Many people probably don't know um, that there is such a thing, post-graduation work permit. Most don't leave right away, of course. They stay for years on temporary status, competing in the same tightening job market as Canadian graduates. So think about it. Now let's look at what people are actually studying. Business and administration is the single largest field, and it's growing fastest among international students. Arts and humanities make up about 12.8% of university enrollment. That's a down 28% over the past decade. Math and computer science was the fastest growing field for 10 years straight. It's cooling now, as you know, the AI reshapes entry level tech hiring and job prospects, and trade services and natural resources. College enrollment there is down almost 11% since before the pandemic, even as the shortage keep growing. So, meanwhile, here is the demand side. Canada has more than 550,000 unfilled jobs right now. The construction and the trade sector alone needs about 85% more workers by 2032, according to some estimates. And entry-level jobs for bachelor's degree holders have collapsed. More than, let's say, 70,000 vacancies in early 2024 to under 30,000 now. So that's a big gap. So healthcare and the trades are holding up just fine. Entry-level office and knowledge work is not doing that well. At least the prospect is not very well right now. Business, marketing, and HR posting alone fell almost 40% in a single quarter. So you can see the trend where it's going. So here is a simple earnings comparison. So how does the pay actually compares? A bachelor's in math or computer science pays about, let's say, again, approximately $66,200 2 years after graduation. Engineering pays about $62,600. Business pays about $49,500. So you get the picture. A licensed electrician makes about $72,800 a year on average. A licensed plumber makes around 70,000 or more, depending. And as you may know in Canada, a red seal trade now out-earns some university degrees without any debt. So it's a big change or shift. Now let's look at the case for keeping things the way they are, the status quo. The post-secondary sector says broad access to university drive long-run social mobility and innovation that trades funding also can't replace. Career economists point out that over a full career, degree holders still out-earn non-degree holders on average. That's what they say, but again, I haven't seen very many evidence of that yet. Today's rough patch might not last, and health and STEM employers say hospitals, tech firms, and engineering firms still need the university pipeline for a specialized role. We'll look into that more those arguments. And here is the case against. Skilled trades employers say Canada trained too many people for jobs that don't exist, while trade seats went underfunded for years. Fiscal policy critics, they say, taxpayers are subsidizing low return credential with no accountability for what happens after graduation. And labor economists point to entry-level posting collapsing across white-collar fields. And they say AI is hollowing out the exact jobs many of these degrees were built for. These are some important points. And on top of it, if you just add the immigration layer, as we mentioned in last episode, about 25% of the students are foreign students. And as you saw earlier, that after 2-3 years, 74% actually stays in the country, and they are competing with the graduates who are looking for the same type of jobs. So there's artificially created a competition with the Canadians who spend time and money for the jobs that they hoped for. So immigration element is a key important fact, even though the critic will say that foreign students paying 5-7 times more than the Canadian citizens their tuition fee, but that's actually misplaced argument because that's not the same. Because the whole, I guess you can say, the idea is that the foreign students were supposed to come here, learn from our education system, the colleges and university, which are mostly private entities, and they will go back. But that's not the case. We all know that. So it's not fair to the Canadian students who are hoping to get higher education so they can actually land a better job and have a better future. But nobody has been held accountable for this mismatch of the expectation that was provided to those students and the reality of the job prospects. So we need government to look at the accountability factors more and respect the taxpayers who are actually funding a significant amount of money, I mean billions, to these colleges and universities, and also creating other social problem that we discussed in the past and will discuss more in future. So now let's look at our usual who wins and who loses column. So in this current system, the winners are the healthcare and trade employers, STEM graduate degree holders, provinces, because you guessed it, they haven't had to change the funding formula. They didn't have to work hard to come up with new solutions, new ideas. And the schools with strong co-op and apprenticeship ties, they also benefited. Who bear the main risk and load, or should I say the losers? The losers are the new grads in saturated field like business and arts, humanities, and other programs, which doesn't really provide any good prospect for high-paying jobs. That all these students really incurred a big debt to go through those programs, and also would-be trade workers who couldn't actually get a seat. Many students who wants to actually try to get into the technical field, there's very limited amount of seats, and they don't have the capacity to be on the top 5 or 10% of the students with the higher marks and their credential to get into those programs. and taxpayers backing more than $29 billion in debt. Think about it. We're producing or giving free loans, easy loans, however way you characterize it. Taxpayers are actually on the hook for about $29 billion in debt or more in future. And international grad stuck in a shrinking post-graduation work permit pipeline. And you've probably seen recently in Calgary, a lot of foreign students, they were protesting when the government tried to, I guess, curtail their application for continuing post-graduation work permit. And that created a big, I guess, big news. But those are all foreseeable problem. Government created those problem for the greed of universities and colleges. We'll talk about university and colleges greed in another episode, perhaps in future, because it probably deserves a thorough look and review for itself. So anyway, for now, let's put that one aside again. So now let's look at the policy consideration of what could change. So here is actually few option, at least broadly speaking, which is keep broadly subsidizing university across every field and the way we do it today. So it means keeping the status quo the way it is now. Option B, shift funding toward colleges, apprenticeship, and skill trades. That sounds good and more reasonable and more practical direction. However, it does have its flaws in the long run. So, what are the options C? Let's tie the student loan terms to employment outcomes by field of study. So that's is an interesting option, but practical implementation of that could be quite cumbersome and troublesome and bureaucratic. So none of these are really free, either way you slice it. Each one decides who gets funded and who pays for it. So there is a lot to consider, and we haven't had any proper debate among politicians and the parties because they are all quite happy to just kind of ignore the problems and focusing on other short term or short news cycle issues, as you probably already know. So, in this episode, here we basically land. Canada isn't really short on graduates. We're not short on talented students. We have a lot of great students here. And it's short on a plan for what happens to them. There hasn't been any newer way of thinking, planning, and executing those plans. We built a funding system for a labor market that's already changing dramatically without changing how we fund it. And it's going to change more dramatically as we discuss about the introduction and the revolutionizing of AI in every field, every businesses. So if the credential doesn't match the job, who is really carrying the cost? Who is accountable? Who is paying for it? Of course, we know taxpayers are paying for it, but I'm just saying that none of the recipients, it seems like, I mean, they don't have any accountability. Part 3 will discuss or will get into inside the university's own books, at least as much as we can get the information that is publicly available. That is, its revenues, its expenses, and where the administrative cost went. And also we'll look at the immigration area or issue will be built in because, as I mentioned in the last episode, 25% of the students are foreign students. So that number will change in future, and whether the impact will be the same magnitude or not will let the data to speak for itself when we get those information in future years. However, in the meantime, if you have any comments or if you have any other ideas, please just drop your line, and I will just try to incorporate them in future episode. And thank you for listening to this episode.